Hello, I'm Mark Scherer. I'm the CEO and founder of Encompass Life and the host of the Wellness Revolution podcast. On the Wellness Revolution, we're working with people involved in the healthcare industry who are bringing a new perspective to the industry, even sometimes with the difficulty they butt up against, they still have the courage to buck the system. And today, have a great bucker on the call, and his name is Dr. Nik, or he goes by Dr. Nik or Dr. K, and he's with Island Family Health. And Dr. Nik, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here, Mark. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, sir. So we've kind of chatted a few times, and you're doing things very different in your practice. So can you share a little bit about what you're doing?
Sure. So I'm a family medicine doctor. I'm traditionally trained in Western medicine. I graduated from school in Chicago. I did my residency there, but that was too cold for me, so I moved to Florida. It was very soon that I figured out the intricacies and challenges of our healthcare system. I was taking care of a lot of patients, always in a time constraint, trying to run from patient to patient, stressing myself out, but obviously stressing my own patients out, trying to do the best for them. And that's what the health system has become to be. And at one point, and that was like a few years back, I looked at this really close, and I said there has to be a better way. And that's why I changed my practice to the personalized care program, or a lot of people know it as concierge practice, where you actually do not have to take care of thousands of patients, where you have to run from room to room every 10 and 15 minutes, but actually you take care of less patients, but you take care of them really well. So, for instance, my appointments is like 40 minutes. A typical appointment, I can spend up to an hour and a half if needed with a patient. So it's the access to care where you have the time to sit down and take care of the person and not just a number that will, translate into a paycheck like the insurances want us to do.
So you spend sometimes an hour and a half with a patient?
Exactly. That's why this is something that it's unheard of.
Yeah.
I All doctors used to do that when they didn't have the constraints and they had the time and they didn't have all the bureaucracies and all the documentations and everything that we have to deal with these days. But right now, my schedule is much lighter, but I have the time to focus and ask the right questions. And we talked about it. Asking the right questions is the most important thing that a doctor or any practitioner or provider can do.
So you must be independently wealthy and you're just doing this just for fun, right?
Exactly, exactly. No, I'm far from it. But it's the traditional system poses a lot of constraints, financial constraints of people who want to be on their own, independent.
Right.
So that's why these days the majority of the new graduates they don't open their own shop. They have to be absorbed by a big healthcare corporation in order for them to be able to pay back their debts, school loans, and everything else. And when you start working in the system, you can see how a lot of the times you don't work for the patient, you work for the insurance company.
Right.
And that's
And
the
CDC and the AMA
exact
and all the bureaucratic things.
and the red tape exactly.
Yeah.
And again, and that's the thing that I had seen. It's the doctor patient relationship, which is sacred and holy one. And you see that being infiltrated, and you have 50 other middle people in there trying
Hmm.
to sometimes dictate how you should be practicing and what treatment one person needs versus not.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, the bureaucratic top down medicine. When I was a kid, there was always like an older doctor in town who the young doctors would go, "Hey, have you had this happen before? What did you do?" Sometimes people coming out of the new doctors would have maybe a new surgical technique or a new, something that the old doctor didn't have, and he would, pick up from them. But there's also, he had knowledge from real life in the trenches experience that he would share with the younger doctors as well. So it was more of a community based health environment.
Absolutely. And that's what we try to get away from that and make everything very science-like or objective and science-based medicine where the emotion is pushed aside and everything has to be dependent on data. But it doesn't work that way. We're still dealing with human beings. And that's the thing that has been taken out of the equation in the modern day. Sometimes I call it like cookbook medicine or recipe medicine where we just go through the motions and check some boxes. So it's
Right.
much more to medicine or taking care of people than just working for the system. You have to work for the patient.
Yeah. One of the things you said was you're talking about bringing the stress out of your business. When I was a kid, I remember reading articles and they said 90% of all disease was caused by stress.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we
Yeah.
we have a lot of evidence these days. Again, there are certain diseases that you didn't have a long time ago, right? And
Right.
it's the modern times, I guess, disease or symptoms. And absolutely, the somatic manifestation of be it stress or trauma, it's huge and underestimated and under reported.
Right. And oh, if you're feeling depressed or you're feeling anxiety, here's a pill, which is putting more stuff into your system. Yeah, it's rather than I mean our body has this beautiful design to it where we're a chemical producing factory
Correct.
and people just like if somebody's doing cocaine, they get addicted to cocaine. Well, people get addicted to the drama, or get addicted to the stress. But what I've found here is the the chemicals the body produces are just as toxic to the system as cocaine is.
Absolutely.
And it's so much more insidious because they're not snorting, shooting, popping, smoking, so there's no outside habit that they have to get rid of, how do they regulate their own internal body chemistry and um, become self masterful with their own chemistry.
Absolutely. And that's why we have so much power within us to control our health and our state of being that a lot of the times we have given that power away.
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly. Giving it away, exactly. And we still have it. It's just we have to reclaim it or remember we have it to be able to regulate ourselves.
absolutely.
Dude, this is all interesting conversation. So, what if you're spending an hour and a half with a person or 40 minutes with a person, 30 or 40 minutes with a person, your race must be astronomical to make a living.
No, it's not astronomical.
I'm jacking with you, you know that,
I,
right?
I understand that, but I have a lot of patients sometimes, yes, that has to be, we have to keep the doors open, right? So patients have to pay for a service here. But most patients, after the experience what this personalized medicine is and what it means not to have been rushed over, like going over your concerns one by one, having a good discussion without just, oh, is it your head's hurting you? Let me send you to a neurologist. Oh, is your knee hurting you? Let me send you to an orthopedic. Instead of becoming like or let me reach for my script pad to write you a prescription for something, right? That's the easiest and quickest way. And unfortunately, the way the system is, that's what it rewards. The more of that you do, the more you make, the more everybody makes. And in the end, it's in the best interest of the system to keep the disease going, perpetuate that disease, and the system doesn't look for an answer here. It's just perpetuating the disease because that keeps everybody in business.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see how you could be a little well spoken in your industry.
That's sometimes, right?
That's awesome.
Yes,
That's where change comes from.
exactly. And that's why when you have the time and you ask the right questions and you are able, and sometimes people, and I call them patients, but they're people. They just want to be heard. It's all about communication. And a lot of the times, I have patients who they used to come like the old way. I call it the old way I used to practice when they come with a big, huge list. I have like 10 or 15 complaints. and you're feeling, oh my God, how I'm going to go through this, I'm going to run behind, and all these things. And you figure out after you talk to them for a while that at least 90% of that list doesn't even matter, because it's something else. And a lot of the time, the psychological and mental component is huge.
Right. And what I've what we're doing here, I've discovered too, people compete on how much they can complain.
Correct.
You
Yes.
think you got trouble with your kids? Let me tell you about my kids. You think you got trouble with your back? Let me tell you about my back. And they
Exactly.
and everybody's focusing on what they on one, how big their complaints can be, and what they've done to be able to survive in it, rather than like I can, but I'm strong and I can take it or something. As if that's the way to live life. It's like so backwards, man.
Exactly. Exactly. It's as you said, it's the race to the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You got some good stuff, Dr. Nik. I like it. And so we can begin. We're doing here like how can you compete on how much you can love life? We start flipping that switch, and I find it fascinating. I've asked people, what don't you like? I'm going to be in a class. I'm like, what don't you like? People can't wait to tell me what they don't like. Just give me three things. No one wants to stop at three.
Oh, absolutely.
And then after about an hour later, I would say, what do you love about life? What do you love in your life? No one can say a word. I was like,
Unfortunately.
what's going on?
Yes. Yes. That's why that needs to change. That's not
Yeah.
natural. That's not normal. And that's what we're
Mhm.
working on.
Yeah. Life's a beautiful gift, and until you can see it as such, it turns into a burden and creates a lot of anxiety and stress. But you got to be able to see it.
Unnecessary anxiety and stress. Exactly how you
Yeah.
put it.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So, what services do you offer?
So I do the traditional like primary care, family medicine. So I manage a lot of, the high blood pressure, the diabetes, the cholesterol, all the bread and butter of every primary care physician. But I'm focusing heavily on prevention, and that's why I look a lot on the diet. So Hippocrates, the ancient, Greek doctor, there was saying, "Let food be your medicine," right? Instead of looking for medications all the time. So I focus heavily on nutrition and of course on exercise and physical activity. So those are two of the pillars, and then the third part has to do again with the mental aspect, where it has to do with the psychosomatic and mental, spiritual, and aspect of well-being, because you have to address all aspects.
Yeah, yeah. So, how do you handle that in your practice?
So just by it's the way you handle people, right? As soon as somebody comes here in our office, we our members have a direct line to a human person. So it's not like an automated menu where, the first thing you hear, if this is an emergency, call 911 and this, and if you are this, push one and two and three and fight through a menu there. So number one is we try to treat our patients like human beings. So when you call here, we have somebody picking up the phone. When you come to our practice, we'll welcome you, and we try to create like a warm environment. Like, I'm family medicine doctor. I want my patients to feel like family. So it starts from there. How do you treat somebody? I want to know them. That's why I spend time with them. I need to know their habits, their family, how they're doing. We talk about other things because that's very important in building that relationship and building trust, because you
Yeah,
have to start from there.
gotcha. So,
And
yeah. So the movie Patch Adams did make a big influence in your life.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
So
Big fun.
Dr. Nik is the Patch Adams of Florida.
I wish I could get that at one point. Yes, that would be, again, we're evolving as a business, but again, yes, absolutely. That is one of my goals, to be able to incorporate that into the practice of medicine, because that's missing.
Wow, that's amazing. You're gonna get a little red nose and everything too.
I would do that. I would
Yeah,
do. My patients will love it. Yes,
yeah. Whatever it takes for people to shift.
exactly.
Yeah, and it's when you have that attitude, it makes it so fun because because no matter what's happening, if those things work, So if you know they work, all you do is keep having fun with them, and eventually things start to shift. Like laughter is the best medicine.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things in my training that I didn't like it in the beginning, but I found it to be most helpful is doing family medicine residency. We also had to take care of kids. So the family medicine motto is from the cradle to the grave. So taking care of kids, they have to trust you too. So you have to be more playful. You have to remember how it was when you were a kid and
Yeah,
how to certain things, you have to take some filters off because we've developed so many filters growing up and society has put those on us.
yeah,
That's not the right thing to say or to do or laugh
yeah,
so it becomes like, after a while, it feels like a jail. So when you're treating kids, again, it becomes a little bit more liberating and rewarding. And then you have to think and say, okay, why do we suddenly stop at 18 and we say, okay, from now on, you can't joke about something or you can't really see the funny or a little bit of the brighter side. It doesn't
mhm,
have to be all or doom and gloom.
yeah.
And then that's where you give some of the power back to the patient as far as trying to be happier and take care of some of their ailments
Yeah.
and self-heal.
Yeah. Do you remember there was an experiment done where they gave rats cocaine and the rats would do cocaine. They gave up sex, they gave up eating, and they just did cocaine until they died. You remember that
Yeah.
experiment?
Yes,
Did
yes.
you hear the experiment they did where there was a guy who saw the results of that and he goes, I think I don't think the rats were addicted to the cocaine. I think they were just miserable in their cages, and they went to cocaine as an escape. Did you see what he did?
Again, I wasn't aware of that, but that now it clicks together.
Yeah. So what he did, he ran the same experiment, but instead of putting the rats in the cages, he built like a rat super city
Wow,
where they could go and play and they had things to do and they could raise families and do all those different things in this really beautiful rat heaven environment. They introduced cocaine to the rats. They tried it and left it alone.
that is crazy. Yes,
Yeah. And so when you're talking about the stress and stuff, so as humans, we're you should use the word prison, right? So we're
yes,
in our own prison, but it's of our own making and our own self-induced stress and anxiety with our thoughts and our perspectives on life and believing this is just the way it is that's producing all these effects.
exactly. And that's why, and going back to the point that you made when we were talking, we've given that away and we haven't been taught how to regain that. And that's we do have these abilities and we really need to focus on that as a person and as a society as a whole. We need to teach our kids these things.
Uh-huh.
And no one is talking about these things or
Uh-uh.
teaching kids. That's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. And it's like we have this beautiful, there's a, yeah, I told you a little bit, I was raised differently than what
yes,
I'm doing now, like way different. And we live in this beautiful game of life, and no one has taught us the rules of this game of life.
correct.
The way my analogy for the game of life is imagine if I said, hey, Dr. Nik, just let you know, I sent you a gift before we ever got on this call. And it's outside. It's a $500 million Mercedes in your perfect color. Imagine if you believed me. You'd be on the way out the door already. Like, I got to see this thing, right? And say,
Right.
Dr. Nik, be careful. It's got a 5,000 horsepower motor. And you'd be like, oh my God, oh, no cop's going to catch me now, right?
Exactly.
And be careful. It's got a button. If you hit the button, you're going to fly. And another button you hit, you're going to do space travel. And be careful. Be really, really careful. There's another button in there. If you hit it, going to do multiples of the speed of light. And you're already out the door to 5,000 horsepower, right? So you get in the Mercedes and you hit a button. The next thing you know, you run into Pluto and you start bitching me out for giving you the gift.
Exactly.
So the moral of the story is that's how most people view life. They come into life, they're really, really enthusiastic about life. They don't understand how life works. No one taught them the rules of the game and how all this stuff works. So they get in and they get really enthusiastic about life, and something happens, and instead of learning how to use a gift, they blame the giver of the gift of life. They blame God.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
That's when all the dejection and the anxiety and all that stuff starts to happen.
Trauma, correct.
Yeah,
That's exactly.
yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, it's like instead of blaming, start to learn how to use this wonderful gift and see what happens.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely, and just to one last thing, I had like a lot of a lot, not a lot in these days, but my quadriplegic patients, they had injuries, right? And there comes a point in their life where I've gotten so many lessons from my patients, and when they tell me, I focus on what I'm able to do and not what I can do, that was again a bulb went off in my head, saying, "Oh my God, what's a wonderful way of start looking at
yeah,
life in general."
yeah. Well, I see can't as a muscle and can as a muscle, and whichever one grows is the one you work.
Perfect. Couldn't
Yeah,
say it any better. That's
yeah.
great.
So, do you take insurance? Does insurance pay for your services?
We still take some insurance, like we build the insurance for certain services because you still have to stay in the system. For instance, if you want to order expensive tests, that
Right.
it would be very expensive for the patient. So we still build the insurance, but also we charge the patient for a membership fee in order for me to be able to offer those appointments. So in order for me not to have to see, 20 and 30 patients a day and offer like the long appointments and the immediate availability. And the other thing patients get is they get my email, personal email, my cell phone. They can reach out to me, in a very personal level without having to go through, two, three different people and leave a message and an answering service or something that's so
Wow.
inhumane. So
Wow. Does your wife ever get to see you?
so actually she sees me more now than I used to, because before, one of the things with doctors is documentation and bureaucracy. So after you're done your day seeing patients, right, at 5 o'clock, let's say, then you have another 2 to 3 hours of just typing your life away, as we call it, or documenting every little thing that has happened because of, litigation and frivolous lawsuits and malpractice and all these things. So again, this is a much more efficient way of practicing medicine, and it's much more rewarding personally,
Mm.
and again as a business also. So it hits all levels.
I have one of our clients is a doctor. I'd love to have you two connect because I think you have a lot would have a lot of chemistry and be able to share some ideas together. Yeah, she's doing something similar in Katy, Texas. So
Awesome. That sounds great.
awesome. Um, so anything you like to leave on a final note?
The other things that we do also, I do also, you have to step sometimes out a little bit out of a system, think, outside of the box. Okay. And then the patients, when they come to the doctor, they didn't read the books with the symptoms that we read at school. So sometimes things don't make sense and we can't explain everything and we don't have an answer for everything. So it's the whole approach of taking care of someone. You have to be able to work with patients, keep an open mind. I had patients telling me, I tried acupuncture for this and that worked for me great. And I said, okay, I'm happy for you. As opposed to like other colleagues that say, oh, no, there's no evidence that this works and this doesn't, and all these things. So you have to be able to be there for the journey with the patient. So I also do a lot of, I do like a hormone evaluation, optimization, hormone replacement. We also do weight loss programs. I do also a lot of cosmetics and aesthetics for patients who want to improve their skin appearance and everything. So we do a lot of things because I have
Hmm.
the time and I have the expertise to be able to take care of the whole person.
Gotcha. So what do you think about like the Ozempic and the GLP stuff? Are y'all do those or
Yes, we've done a lot of those in our practice. There has been a little bit of back and forth here regarding obesity. Unfortunately, in the 90s, everybody was blaming the patient, and
Mhm.
that's gluttony. That's why you are overweight or obese because you can't control yourself. But there's so much more behind being overweight and
Well,
obesity. And that goes also with the psychological and mental aspects. So a lot of trauma and anxiety and stress creates the stress eating and the
yeah.
stress eating behavior, right? So ideally, in an ideal world, you mentioned that rat heaven that the experiment had. So if we had a human heaven where you have all the time in the world to be able to grow your own food and cook your food and be active and
Mhm.
exercise and be playful and happy, I don't think we'll be needing those medications.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the current state of things, in America in 2024, where we are, they can definitely help turn people's lives around. We don't have a lot of evidence for the very long-term effects of these medications, but for
Hmm.
at least for the medium term, so 5 to 10 years, so far we have very good reports, and a lot of patients' life has been helped with that.
Gotcha. Cool. So I have one question I always end up the podcast on. And my one question is, what do you love about life?
I love the part that life is full of surprises and experiences, and you never know what's waiting for you. But the main thing that moves me and gets me through life is love.
Hmm.
Love for people, love for animals, love for everyone.
Well, one of my teachers says love is the only thing that actually moves us forward. Everything
Um,
else that's in opposition to us pulls us back, and love is the only thing that actually gives us life.
I agree 100%. I agree
Yeah,
100%.
and we can compete on our ability to give and receive love.
That is even so true. Receiving love and giving love.
Yeah,
Yes.
beautiful, sir. Thank you so much for being on the show.
It was my pleasure.
Look forward to seeing you again.
Take care.
Blessings. Blessings.